Abigail Williams and Liberty German's bodies were found near the Monon High Bridge Trail in Delphi, Indiana, one day after the girls disappeared during a walk, and investigators later discovered that Liberty's phone had captured video and audio of the man believed to be responsible. What made the recording disturbing was how calm and ordinary the encounter first appeared, even as the girls were already realizing something was wrong. On a cold afternoon near the Monon High Bridge Trail, Abigail and Liberty walked along the abandoned railway path, while recording short videos and laughing between the sounds of the creek and the wooden bridge beneath them. As they moved farther across the bridge, a lone man standing unusually still near the trail entrance, watching long enough that both the girls noticed, and Liberty quietly turned her phone toward him, without making it obvious. Near the center of the bridge, the girls slowed their pace, when the man began crossing behind them with steady, deliberate steps that echoed through the open structure. Liberty continued recording in short fragments, while Abigail repeatedly looked back at the narrowing distance between them and the approaching figure. Late afternoon on the bridge, the man kept walking toward them without speaking, forcing the girls toward the isolated end, where the path became harder to navigate safely. The video later recovered from Liberty's phone captured only seconds of his movement, but investigators noticed the girls' voices becoming quieter and more controlled as he came closer. At the south end of the bridge, the girls stepped off the old railway structure and moved toward the wooded area near Deer Creek, while the man followed without hesitation. Audio recovered from the phone captured his calm voice saying, "Guys, down the hill," followed by sudden movement and muffled sounds, as the recording continued inside a pocket. Near the creek in the fading evening light, the recording preserved fragments of hurried footsteps, strained breathing, and branches snapping through the woods, before long periods of distorted silence took over. Investigators later believed the girls had tried to stay calm, while being forced farther away from the trail, and out of view from anyone nearby. As darkness settled around the wooded area, search volunteers calling the girls' names unknowingly passed within close distance of where evidence would later be found, near Deer Creek. The isolation of the terrain, combined with the freezing February air and dense tree cover, delayed any understanding of how quickly the situation had turned fatal. The next afternoon near the creek bed, investigators discovered Abigail Williams and Liberty German's bodies, concealed within the wooded area, not far from the trail they had entered the day before. What disturbed investigators early in the search was how little obvious struggle had been visible from the bridge, despite the violence that had occurred below it. Inside the investigation center days later, detectives repeatedly reviewed Liberty's recovered phone video, frame by frame, focusing on the man's clothing, posture, and voice-captured moments before the girls vanished. Witness statements from the trail described a quiet man in dark clothing, walking with unusual focus through the area, around the same time the girls disappeared. During the long investigation, detectives reviewed earlier interviews and rediscovered that a local Delphi man named Richard Allen had already admitted years earlier that he had been on the trail that afternoon, wearing clothing similar to the man seen in Liberty's video. Combined with his own statement, the investigators placed him near the bridge during the exact period Abigail and Liberty encountered the unidentified figure. After Richard Allen's arrest, investigators reconstructed the final movements along the bridge and concluded that Abigail Williams and Liberty German had unknowingly preserved critical evidence against him through the phone recording hidden in one of the girls' pocket. The trail remained physically unchanged, but the recovered audio and video permanently transformed an ordinary afternoon walk into one of the most recognized murder investigations in American crime. Investigators later concluded that Richard Allen did not appear to personally know Abigail or Liberty before the encounter, which led prosecutors to argue that the murders happened because he found two isolated victims at the exact moment he realized nobody else was near the bridge. The disturbing part of the case was that nothing in the girls' day suggested they were specifically targeted until the moment the man in Liberty's recording decided to follow them across the trail. If you still think about how Abigail Williams and Liberty German unknowingly captured the evidence that helped identify Richard Allen years later, follow and share this story, and tell us whether you believe the case hid more details than investigators ever revealed.